Hi, folks. I'm Jamie Hiles,
I'm Lydia Judy.
I'm Derek Master.
and this is Screen Bloody Movies, the podcast where we review a horror movie each week, go over the horror news, and this week start season 2 of the show. How are you guys doing?
Doing good. Season 2.
My mood starts with a T. You just fill in the gaps. So,
Terrific.
yeah, we'll go with that one.
I said season 2, and I felt like the principal from Breakfast Club. Mess with the bull, you get the horns. If I come back in here, I'm going to bust some skulls.
I think I did this. I don't know. We don't know what to do with our hands. This was supposed to be audio.
Now, you know what that was? That's now we say, this is phone. I saw a thing where somebody was like, they asked people our age to mimic a phone, and we all did this, and then they asked new kids, and they're like,
That's so funny.
Nuh-uh.
yeah.
So
Because for
real.
us, it was the receiver, you're holding the receiver.
Yeah.
And then for them, it's like, that's how they hold their iPhones. It's like, so if you said to a young guy, a young gal, somebody younger than us, if we said, hey, I need you to, they would have no idea what the hell we were talking about. We'd be like, hey. They're like, cool, man.
Radical.
Awesome. They probably wouldn't know what that is either because they're not Michelangelo.
Wow.
Well, guys, we did it. We made it through season 1. We're making it through the end of the year. We are recording this episode on January. We're recording this episode on December 30th, 2021. So by the time this airs, it'll be New Year's. We'll have started 2022, and let's hope that 2022 is better than the last 2 years. Here's hoping. Knock on all the wood.
I think it's gonna be great.
Think it's gonna be great.
Love
I
your
will say,
optimism.
in 2022, we will be releasing Secret Admirer, more likely than not. So
Well,
we have that to look forward to.
if anything goes wrong in 2022, we'll be like, well, at least Secret Admirer came out.
Exactly. And I'll say, look how great that was, right, guys? You guys love it? So, I'm going to start with the horror news like I do every week. But before I do, I want to warn you guys. I, again, don't have a lot of horror news this week. But I have some. So, let's get into the horror news. All right. First, I'm going to start with the small ones. Then I'm going to build to the big one, okay? So, let's start this week like we do every week with New Monsters News.
Derek's favorite.
This week it's canceled, right?
No, this week it's still here. We've got a Christmas card from Mr. Zombie himself. You guys want to see it?
A Christmas card?
A Christmas card. Here, I'll bring it over. Let me know when you can see your screen. You got it? Right there.
Wow.
What do you guys think? That looks pretty good, I think, right?
Yeah, it's not bad.
I mean, that's pretty good. That's cool.
Anyway, you can zoom in on that.
Yeah.
It reminds me of like a MySpace early like GIF.
Yeah. Is that better, Derek?
Yeah.
What do you guys think?
Yeah, I like it.
So
Pretty
for our
good.
audio-only listeners, which we haven't done in a while, it is a picture of Herman, Grandpa, and Lily, as played by Sherry Moon Zombie, of course. and they are standing around a Christmas tree with skulls. So, I mean, that kind of gives us the right vibe, don't you guys think?
Mm-hmm.
If we're going off the Christmas card, it looks good.
Yeah, I can tell you're kind of struggling with this, Derek. You, for the first time, have admitted that it looks okay. You're like, damn it. I don't know what to think of this.
Speaking of Christmas cards, I just have to ask you, Jamie, if you got an MST3K.
I did not get one.
Oh man,
Jake
you
got
will.
one. Yeah. Yeah, he told me about it and showed it to me. And I was like, that's
It's-
really cool.
It's beautiful.
Yeah, I saw it. It's
Really
great.
Really made my day today getting that in the mail. Started my day off right.
That is the way to start your day off, right? The only thing that would have been better is if it was if John Carpenter had sent me one. Just said, good work on everything, Jamie. Congratulations.
Could you imagine?
No, that would be the greatest day of my life. I would literally frame it, and then everybody that came over to my house, I would show it to them. Even when you guys came over, every time you came over, even after I've shown it to you, I'd say, hey, did you guys see my John Carpenter Christmas card? Like, yes, Jamie, we've seen it. Yeah, it was awesome. So the next bit of horror news we have here is this deal right here. So do you guys remember, have you guys ever seen or heard me talk about the movie The Mutilator?
I've never seen it.
No, it's a 80s slasher movie that has some pretty good effects. Actually, has really good effects. Mark Strostrom, who ended up doing the effects for Evil Dead 2. He was the lead effects for Evil Dead 2. He did a lot of the effects when he was young. It's just a slasher movie, but it's known for its great opening song, which sounds exactly like a sitcom from the 90s called Fall Break. It's like, Fall Break, gonna have a good time. We're gonna have a good time. Gonna have a good time. Yeah, we're gonna have a good time. We're going on now. A fall break, walking hand in hand in the moonlight. The reason I am mentioning The Mutilator is because it has been announced that the 1984 slasher Mutilator is getting a sequel, a belated sequel, starring Terry Kaiser. That's right, Bernie from Weekend at Bernie's is going to be in this, and of course Friday the 13th Part 7. So, since you guys don't know anything about this, you probably have no reaction. But how great is it that a 1984 slasher movie is getting a belated sequel from the original director?
That's awesome.
I think they've ran out of ideas.
No, that's his only idea, is to make a sequel to the movie he already made.
So he was. This is kind of a little off left field, although it's not really horror. It's more like science fiction. Have you ever seen the movie with him? He's a doctor. He's like a mad scientist, and it's got Paul Walker in it and Denise Richards. And Paul Walker dies, and then his brain gets implanted into a robotic T-Rex.
Oh, yes.
What is that movie called?
Tammy and the T-Rex.
Yes.
It is.
Yes.
It's
yes.
a heaping pile of dog poop, but man.
It's a terrible one. But yeah, that's right. Tammy and the T-Rex. Tammy and the T-Rex is interesting. You know what else is an interesting one? That movie where Whoopi Goldberg teams up with a Tyrannosaurus Rex and they're cops.
What?
You guys have never seen that movie? Oh my god, what the fuck is the name of that movie? Whoopi Goldberg, T-Rex. It is called Theodore Rex.
Whoa.
From 1995. 1995. She tried to get out of doing it, she somehow, like, I think had to do it to fill a contract, and she was stuck making that piece of shit. So it's terrible.
Wow.
Now, guys, this is the last bit of horror news we have. It's the biggest, kind of. It's both the biggest and it's also not news at the same time. So, the Friday the 13th lawsuit is over. So it's ended. Sean Cunningham didn't appeal the court's decision. He had until 4 p.m. yesterday to appeal the decision, and he didn't. Which means that Victor Miller owns the rights to his original screenplay only in the U.S., and that means effectively that the rights are split. So it's big news for the fact that the lawsuit is over. But unless they come to a compromise, we won't be seeing another Jason movie for a while. Because I guess the way it shakes out is this. He owns the rights to the original screenplay and the character names. Sean Cunningham owns the right to hockey mask adult killer Jason. So Sean Cunningham can't make a movie featuring Jason, even without the Friday the 13th name, without Victor Miller's approval. Victor Miller can't make a Friday the 13th movie worldwide and that features Jason without Sean Cunningham. So since the lawsuit is over, it seems like both sides are probably, hopefully, working together to come up with a compromise here. What are your guys' thoughts on all of that?
That's such a crazy thing that they got it split right where they can't use any of it, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Some greedy SOBs. I don't know why you just don't go 50-50.
At this point, Sean Cunningham is about to turn 80. He turns 80 tomorrow on Friday. So he turns 80 on Friday. So, I mean, I guess for his family's estate, but I mean, you're hitting 80. It's not like you are going to need much more money. I mean, you're already rich off the movies you made already, I would imagine. But, yeah, like, so hopefully this makes both sides mediate because they can't do anything without each other. So they need to figure this out. And hopefully we get a Jason movie within the next 5 years. Best case scenario.
That's so crazy.
I know. My boy Jay. Where are you? We've been waiting for you. You know, it's been 12 years since the Friday the 13th movie. 2019. Going on 13. Lucky 13 years. That's crazy. It's also been the same amount. This is what they call a segue in the business, folks. It's also been about the same amount of time since we've had a new Nightmare on Elm Street movie, which is tonight's movie. You guys like that?
Very nice.
That's why I'm the best in the biz. They call me Segway Jamie, mostly because I ride a Segway around town. But
I was gonna say, man, it really flows off the tongue.
Anyway, we're starting season 2 off strong. Not only with this excellent banter, but tonight's movie, Wes Craven's 1984 Stone Cold masterpiece, A Nightmare on Elm Street. So we're going to start this week like we do every week. And let's talk about our experiences with Nightmare on Elm Street. We'll start with you, Lydia. By the way, I just realized you're wearing a Nightmare shirt. Excellent. And in case you guys haven't noticed, a new part of my set, Freddy, back there, Frederick, he watches over us now. Looks like he's about to murder me. So, Lydia, this is not the first time you've seen Nightmare on Elm Street, correct?
Correct.
All right, tell us your nightmare story.
I don't really have one. I don't remember a specific first time that I watched this. It's one of those that's just always been there, you know? since I was little, it was just kind of like I would see it on, and I really wasn't that afraid of Freddy. Um, my fiance has a different opinion, but
That's my fault.
Yeah. I didn't have anyone to torture me with Freddy Krueger, so I really wasn't that afraid, except for when like older kids would talk about it and tell me how scary it was. But I didn't really, they would just tell me about the story, and then when I finally saw it, I was like, oh yeah, I already know the story now.
That's pretty scary.
Yeah, I do really like Freddy, and I like these movies a lot, but I don't remember. I don't really have a good story for this one.
Derek, what's your nightmare story?
I don't know that I have a specific one. Like, I grew up on this movie because we're old. But I remember watching this when I was a kid, and there were, honestly, like throughout my life, there's only been a couple of characters in movies that like are truly frightening. He's one of them, and we'll get into like the later sequels because he develops more of a personality, and there's a lot of humor involved in that terror. But man, the early years,
specifically this one, yeah.
There's this one, and then there is Wes Craven's New Nightmare.
Like, yeah, so the first and last,
are the scariest, in my opinion.
Because they're both directed by Wes, is why.
That's probably right.
Similar. I mean, I grew up with Nightmare on Elm Street. When I was in kindergarten, my costume was Freddy Krueger. He was my guy. I owned a bunch of Freddy merch. I had a Freddy poster, I had a Freddy yo-yo, a Freddy doll, had the glove. Freddy was my guy. And I always used to watch the sequels, specifically parts 3 and 5. I used to watch all the time. Those were the ones I had. And I remember the first time I saw it when I was younger, probably, but the first time when I was about, 6 or 7 or whatever, I remember my Aunt Lindsay brought over the first one, and I watched it. And I remember after it was over, I was like, oh, that was kind of scary. Freddy's kind of scary in that one. He's not near as funny as he is in the other ones. He's pretty scary. And then as I grew up, it became, the classic that it is. When I was watching it tonight, I remember specifically owning, this is one of the first DVDs I bought. When DVDs were out. This is one of the first. It was those, you remember the guys that were cardboard and you pop the plastic part out and it folds out? One of those cases. I had it on one of those cases, and I had this flashback of watching it at my mom's house, just by myself. I watched it a lot, but I remember watching the audio commentary by myself when I was homesick one day, and it just hit me. I was like, man, this is a great one. I have a lot of thoughts on this one. So are you guys ready to tackle this monstrosity of a horror franchise?
Oh, we're doing the whole franchise tonight?
No. Tonight we're only doing the first one. Like, didn't I tell you this is a marathon, you guys?
Yeah, I was not prepared.
So, let's start at the beginning. The movie opens with the New Line logo, which let's take a second to talk about the New Line logo, right? And this one had like the old New Line logo where it just has the words. But to me, New Line Cinema, I just have a love for it. It is the house that Freddy built. And when I saw it, especially at that point, that's, it just warms the cockles of my cold heart. Seeing the New Line Cinema logo. So it opens with a man working in some kind of dingy basement. And he has like a dingy workbench, and he's like working on stuff. You see him hammering on looks like some blades. He's cutting blades. And then it goes through the whole thing, and you realize that he created the claw. And it flashes the camera, like spins, and the title appears. and then we cut to the next scene. What do you guys think of that opening?
I think that's the best opening that we've seen on this podcast. Possibly. I think maybe not the best, but I think it's the scariest.
Derek, what do you think?
I would have to agree, and also add that, like, that one scene, like, set the stage because he is so iconic, and the reason he's so iconic is his hands are like he's got knife fingers.
Yeah.
So like that one scene literally set up the next 30 years of horror in that franchise.
It is.
So
it's such a like primal weapon. It's such a brilliant idea. Such a brilliant idea, you know. Everybody has knives, and he's like, I don't want him to have a knife. And Wes Craven saw his cat pull his claws out, and he's like, that's it. What's scarier than, I mean, it's deep in our subconscious, right? When, you know, early man was afraid of animals with claws because they could hurt us. So that's, psychologically, it's brilliant. Wes Craven put a lot of thought into, I mean, he's an intellectual. And so Freddy's red and green sweater, the reason his sweater is red and green is because he read an article that said that those are the two colors that's hardest for the human eye to see together. That's why he made him red and green.
Interesting. I don't know that one.
Yeah. So, yes, I would agree with you guys. It is, to me, the second best opening, because I think the first one belongs to John Carpenter's Halloween, of course. But this is the second best. This is it might be the scariest, you're right. Because it's so, like, you just feel dirty watching it. Like you're seeing something you're not supposed to be seeing.
Like a nightmare.
Exactly. Which segues perfectly into the next scene. We're introduced to Tina. And she's running around in her nightgown, and she's in some kind of boiler room. And it's all filled with smoke and fog and water, and she's like just looking around trying to figure out where she is. She's disoriented. We're disoriented as the audience. And while this is all going on, we hear the iconic Nightmare on Elm Street theme. Do 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 do. Awesome. My second favorite horror theme song behind John Carpenter's Halloween. It's just so awesome. So, she's seeing some weird shit. She sees like a goat run down at one point. I think just a goat. She sees she's trying to run and she's like not going anywhere. It's like that whole treadmill feeling. And then she backs into this corner and she thinks somebody's coming after her and there's nobody there. And then he pops up behind her and we get a first quick glimpse of Freddy. Not a really good one, but a quick glimpse of him. And then we cut to her waking up in bed. What do you think of the opening nightmare? Derek.
It's good. It's scary. It's not too revealing. He's kind of lurking in the shadows. He's obviously scaring her. And then you get when she does wake up and she's got her nightgown is slashed, that there's a reality. It does.
Yeah.
It's the reality that sets them to feel, you know, this is not just a nightmare, but it can also hurt me.
Yeah. It's great stuff. Lydia.
Yeah. So I'm just thinking about this. I have nightmares pretty frequently. And I feel like Freddy should have scared me a lot, but there was this one point. Sorry, this has nothing to do with the scene at all.
We're known for that.
But I was in like middle school and I had a dream that I was attacked by a boy in the school with a stapler. And I had
Was this boy's name Milton?
No, but he like
Stapler.
was. I mean, it was just the most vivid dream of like being in a locker room and just being beat with a stapler and like staples going like into my face and stuff. And I had a really hard time. Like I was kind of like afraid of staplers for a long time after that. But I woke up and had like these marks on my fingers that like literally looked like staple marks.
Ooh!
And they hurt, like they were like cuts on my fingers. And I was like convinced that I was gonna get attacked again in my dreams and like it was gonna come to life. So I related to this girl when she was like looking at her shirt and it's all ripped. I was like, oh no. It's so scary.
You're like, oh, you got finger knives. Try getting attacked by a stapler, lady.
Yeah, no kidding.
Real quick, I want to comment on her mom and her mom's boyfriend.
Yes.
Dude, her mom's boyfriend, when he comes in, he's like, come on, are you coming back to the sack? Like,
it's so uncomfortable.
He's such a creep. Such a creep.
I really think that's one of the things that creeps me out the most about this movie is the parents.
The parents. So here's my take on. Yeah, we'll get talking about it more when we get into it too. But I agree. The parents are just absent, basically, and the parents are the only parent that is actually good and listens in the movie is Lieutenant Thompson, and he listens too late, unfortunately. But he's very protective of his daughter. He's actually, present. But like when we get to Nancy's mom, when we get to Marge, we'll talk about her. She's something. But yeah, this mom, you could already tell she's like, I mean, yes, her daughter's in her teens and whatever. But if my kid woke up and had like cuts through her nightgown, I'd be like, what? But then again, I wouldn't have this dude be like, come on, let's go back to bed. So then we follow Tina to school the next day, and we see these kids jumping rope, singing the greatest nursery rhyme ever, 1, 2, Freddy's coming for you. And he cranks it, slightly under cranks it, so it's just like a dream. Like it's just unnatural the way they're jumping. It's beautiful. And we're introduced to the rest of our characters. So Tina's set up at this point as our lead. And then we introduced to her best friend Nancy Thompson, played greatly, by the way, by Heather Langenkamp. Her boyfriend Glenn, played by a very young Johnny Depp. And then Rod Lane, played by Nick Corey in the movie. So we're introduced to them. They're talking about dreams. Rod comes up. She says she woke up with a nightmare, and he said, "I woke up with a heart-on, Tina, when you had your name all over it." And she says,
"Oh my God,
there's 4 letters in my name, Rod. How do you have enough space on your doink for 4 letters?" So we're already
really good comeback.
It is. He's like, "Up yours with a twirling lawnmower." Rod's great.
Dude, I remember hearing that, like that comeback, and I'm like, wow. I don't know if Wes wrote that line or not, but...
Oh, he wrote all of the lines. Yeah, so he definitely wrote it. It's just such a funny line. But yeah, we're introduced to our main gang. And, then we start to kind of get bits of their personality. We find out that all of them are kind of having trouble sleeping. Glenn mentions it slightly. That he says, when you have a dream, you have to just, know you're dreaming and wake up. And then he runs off. So then we cut to the next night, or that night after school. And this movie, the pacing in this movie is perfect. because we just kind of move pretty fast, and then it slows down when it needs to, but it moves pretty quick. And the next night, or that night, we find out that they're having a sleepover. Nancy, Tina, and Glenn is hanging out with them too, staying over because they're afraid. Essentially, Tina wants them to stay the night because her mom's in Vegas, with Danny playing the slots.
Yeah.
And then, so we get this really fun scene where Glenn uses sound effect tape to fool his mom, says that he's staying at the airport. What do you guys think of this little scene here?
That was hilarious.
It's great.
It goes so wrong.
It
I
sounds
love
like
how
something
it goes like all over the place. Yeah.
It's like something we would have attempted, I feel like, back in the analog days.
100%.
Yeah, I mean, we would have 100% attempted this. I remember, it reminds me of this story where me and Zachary, my brother Zachary, when we were kids, we were upstairs wrestling. We were just, like, wrestling was on TV and we just were wrestling. And we were throwing each other around and boom! And my mom came upstairs and she's like, guys, I told you not to wrestle up here. And we literally said, we're not. We're watching wrestling on TV. You heard wrestling on TV. And she says, oh, okay. And went downstairs. Now, she had to have known. But, or she just was like, whatever. But she literally said, oh, okay. Went downstairs. And we're like, ha, we fooled her.
That's awesome.
So this is the big reveal where we find out that Nancy's been having the dreams of the exact same guy. And she describes him. She describes his dirty sweater and his knives. He had these fingernails, scratching his fingernails. They're more like finger knives. And Tina says, you dreamed about the same guy, the same creep I did. And Glenn, when they mention this, he looks up because he's had the same dream. And he tells them, that's impossible. And then they start hearing a screech, the same sound. So they go out to investigate. And I love the way Wes stages them going outside because it's so realistic. Glenn goes first, and both girls grab a hold of Glenn. Which is, as teenage, kids, that would probably be how it would happen. And they're all three huddled together. And then he's like, stay here, I'll go check it out. And he walks across the yard and he's threatening, saying he's going to punch somebody's face off or whatever. Punch their ugly lights out. Then he's tackled by Rod, who has been using a garden tool to scare them. And there's this great line where he says, what's going on here? An orgy? Maybe a funeral, dickhead.
That's about the time he pulls out the knife, and it's like,
yeah, pulls out the switchblade, and he's like, "Did you see his face?"
Did you see his face?
Yeah, come back. Yes. So Rod realizes that Tina's home by herself, so he takes her inside to screw. And he said, we have her mom's bed. You guys got the rest of the house. So then Glenn starts trying to put the moves on Nancy. And she's like, now, Glenn, we're here for Tina, not for ourselves. And he's like, what? And then he has a thing that exists, which is blue balls, Derek.
I can test that.
So
that's the science behind it.
They go to bed, and Glenn's laying on the couch, and he hears them having sex. And it's loud, horrible. Nancy's in a nice room by herself, tucked in. He's laying on the couch and hears them loudly screwing, and he says, morality sucks.
Yeah.
What do you think of this whole scene, this whole section?
I was just thinking the entire time about how big of a movie star Johnny Depp is.
Yeah,
And how much he just had no idea.
I
You
know.
know, he had no idea. He's so young.
Fresh face, baby face. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
This was one of his first movies, right?
This was his first movie.
Yeah.
This is an
Pretty
introducing
sure I knew
Johnny
that.
Depp joint. Yeah.
Yeah. You know, so up until the point, like whenever they're done with their activity upstairs in her mom's room, like you really feel bad for Tina. You're like, oh, good. This guy is an abusive, like manipulative, overbearing person, and then she like has that line, and I'm like, oh, okay, well, that's just stupid. But women, no, I'm kidding, Lydia.
Yeah.
But anyway,
No, I love when
you
she
really,
says, we're here for Tina, not for ourselves." Just always cracks me up. I was like, ooh, I feel like I've heard that somewhere.
but it comes off as a realistic like scenario. Like,
Yeah,
you know,
1000%. Yeah. Also, I think that them going outside is very suspenseful, very scary. It works. Because since this is the first Nightmare movie, we don't know the rules yet. We don't know that you have to be asleep. We don't know any of that yet.
Mm-hmm.
So now they would fool us by either having a character look like they're about to doze off or whatever, because we know the trope. We know how it's supposed to go.
Mm-hmm.
So then, guys, this is where it happens. This is where we have two huge standout scenes. So we're not going to do them in order. We're going to just do them each. So the first one is Nancy is asleep in the bed, and the crucifix falls off the wall. So she just sets it on the side table and falls asleep. And as she's asleep, we see the wall morph, and we see something start to push out of it, and then we see a face form, and then the face pushes through the wall and looks over Nancy. And she senses it. She wakes up and, looks back at the wall. There's nothing there. She hangs the cross back up and knocks on it because she was dreaming somebody was coming through the wall. What do you guys think of this scene?
The lighting is so good. Very iconic. Very well done.
It's crazy, amazing. Because that's like so scary.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like you just see this outline of this face coming through the wall, and then like as she wakes up, how it like sucks it back in. So first off, you're like, how in the world did they do that?
Yeah.
You got a good idea how they did do it, and then secondly, like it's awesome. It's really scary. It definitely aged well as well. I think it looks great now.
Yeah, it's because it's practical effects. It's not digital effects. I mean, that's why it aged so well. And it's such a great idea. Like, what a scary idea, right? I mean, it's a scary idea, somebody watching you sleep. But what if somebody was watching you sleep by coming through the fucking wall? That's terrifying. They did it with spandex. Simple. Spandex.
Is that how they do it?
Yep, spandex. The lighting is what sells it, Lydia. They lit it perfectly, and then have him push through the spandex. And then when they do the cut, they replace it back with the regular wall, so she can knock on it. And that's what sells it too, is her knocking on the wall. Subconsciously, we're like, well, that's solid.
So this also is kind of like a like there's a barrier between this dark place. In this case, it's the dream, right? So there's this barrier, and you've got this entity that is like bending the fabric of that barrier.
Yeah.
And you think he might pop out, right? He might come through that barrier and get her. But it's a good simulation of like that thin veil between the dream world and the real world. And I'm sure like we get to that part later, that's the only way he can kind of hurt people. But it's a really good symbolic representation of that.
I agree. That's very good. Yeah, and it happens 3 times, and we'll point out when they do him breaking the barrier of reality.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's how it begins and kind of how it ends too. So yeah, standout scene, 10 out of 10. So
Sure.
next we get Tina's dream. So Tina's dream sequence is fucking awesome. She's laying in bed with Rod, and Rod had said that he has bad dreams too, and no more bad dreams for any of them, blah, blah. And she wakes up by hearing a pebble hit the window.
Mm-hmm.
So she was like, that's weird. She hears it again, and she decides to go up and to the window to check it out, and then a big pebble hits and cracks the window. And she's like, who are you? Why are you doing this? Whoever you are. So she makes her way down to the outside, and she's walking around the alley, and then she sees a trash can lid twirl into the alleyway, and she looks down the alley and she sees Freddy in the darkness with giant arms stretching the entire length of the alley, and his claws are scraping on the side. And she says, "Oh God." And what does Freddy say, Derek?
This is God.
And he holds up his claw. And they were in. So she starts running. And Freddy's giving chase. Which, by the way, when Freddy's giving chase, it's clearly like a double. And he's like this little like.
Yeah.
Because Freddy has to pop up in front of her. So he's chasing her, and he pops up in front of her. She runs back to the house, and then Freddy jumps from behind a really tiny tree. He somehow pops out beside it. And he's like, "Tina!" And then he cuts off his own fucking fingers. And then
green ooze.
Starts
green blood, yeah.
Spurting green ooze. He attacks her, jumps on her, they fall through a table, and then she wakes up and she's in the bed, and Freddy's under the sheets with her. And she is fighting, she grabs his face, and his face rips off and reveals a skeleton underneath. And then
That's the best.
It's the best. So then she starts shaking. Rod wakes up and he's like, "What's going on?" He pulls the blanket, and she starts, kind of floating. And these 4 razor marks appear down her chest. And then she starts getting twirled around, smacks Rod in the face, then gets dragged up the side of the wall, up to the ceiling, and is reaching for Rod, and he's reaching for her. And then she falls, lands in the puddle of blood, dead. What do you guys think of Tina's dream sequence?
Awesome. I feel like we don't get that enough, where people are flying around the room, like up the walls, on the ceiling.
No, this is the first one of the movies we've reviewed that has that shit.
Awesome.
Maybe Evil Dead, when we get to the sequels of Evil Dead, I guess. But Derek, what do you think?
So whenever the person is chasing her, it reminded me of Screech running. But yeah, so very frightening, and I'm pretty sure that I saw somewhere that how they got that effect of her like going up the walls is they built a room that literally moved. Am I accurate on this? I knew you would know this.
Yes, it's a room basically on a gimbal, and so the room spun 180 degrees. So the floor was the ceiling, and the ceiling was the floor. And so I think I actually did full 360 because they had to do it in different sections. Mm-hmm. So when she's reaching for Rod and she's on the ceiling, she's actually laying on the floor, the camera's upside down, and Nick Corey is stuck to a chair. His hair is greased down, so it stays down, and he's bolted in a chair, reaching up, or essentially reaching down for her.
Yeah, he's upside down.
Yeah, so he's upside down. He's reaching up for him, but down for us. Wes said that she got disoriented one time and freaked out, and Wes popped his head out through the window and said, hey, this is the floor. This is the ceiling. You got to remember, this is the floor, this is the ceiling. Walked her through it so she felt better. Because it would definitely give you a sense of vertigo, probably.
Oh, yeah. I would not do well in that scenario.
But the scene itself, the crafting of the scene is awesome. It's one of the scariest, one of the best kills of all time. It's just a showstopper.
Yeah.
It's a showstopper. And terrifying. I remember my mom telling me that when her and my dad went and saw this in the 80s, before I was born even, that they were terrified. They were afraid to go to sleep and stuff. I was like, yeah, that tracks. Dad graduated in 84, so he would be 18. Probably terrifying. So yeah, one of the best. So Tina in what?
So that would have been 1.
Yeah, I would have been 0. I'd have been negative 2. Yeah. 2 years later, I popped out and was like, "It's showtime, bitch." My Aunt Lizzie tells a story about when I was little. One of the first times she spent alone with us. She was taking us. My grandma and grandpa had a house on the lake. It wasn't the lake house that we have now, but it was on Lake Schaefer. And she was taking me to the park, and I just stopped on the way back and got into character of Freddy. Like I disappeared in the darkness, and she's like, "Jamie?" And I was like, started laughing like Freddy, and she's like, "Jamie, stop." And I said, "My name's not Jamie, it's Freddy." And she's like, "This little kid might kill me. I think he's a psycho."
Dude, I can totally see Clark doing something like that. He's been watching the Polar Express, so he's been walking around the house being like, "I'm the conductor. Do you have your ticket?" Anyway.
Yeah, well, I mean, you know how he gets when he watches Rhino. "I'm Rhino."
Yeah.
He just broods. I was like that with Freddy, except so I'd be like, "Welcome to prime time, bitch." So Nancy and Glenn break in and see this room drenched in blood. And it's from that. After that point, we're introduced to Nancy's parents, Lieutenant Thompson and Marge. Which, by the way, unless you're Marge Simpson, there are no good Marges.
If we have any Marge fans out there, please disregard all of this.
I'm sure
he doesn't mean it.
I'm sure you're a lovely Marge if you're a Marge, but you might want to think about changing your name. The only good Marge is Marge Simpson and Large Marge. Those are the only two in pop culture I can think of. Large Marge is great, guys.
Large Marge.
From Pee-wee's Big Adventure?
Oh, yeah.
Is she the bus driver where her eyes pop out?
Semi-driver,
truck driver.
Yeah, semi-driver where her eyes pop out, yeah.
She's so scary.
She terrified you as a kid?
She's terrified me more than Freddy did as a kid.
You know, side tangent, you know who should have been creepy, but I loved, and most people did find them creepy, were the California Raisins.
Oh, I loved those guys. I don't think those are creepy.
So I know some people that were like, those are so creepy because the way, they were stop motion. And I was like, no, man, California Raisins ruled. Which, why was that a fucking thing? 80s were such a weird time, folks. Such a weird time.
Well, and I think stop motion is pretty unsettling to a lot of people.
It's inherently creepy,
Um,
isn't it? Yeah.
and I think that's why people like us are so attracted to it, is just the slight creep factor that it
Yeah.
has.
Yeah.
Well, it's very nostalgic for us because it's something that
Yeah.
we grew up with. But if you're just seeing it for the first time, and also, have you ever seen the stop motion that they speed up the reel to like 120 frames per second?
Hmm.
It looks, you know, twice as good.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep. They just couldn't do that back then. So.
Yeah.
So, we're introduced to Lieutenant Thompson and Marge. And Marge is, Lieutenant Thompson comes in and he's like, "What was she doing there? Why was she staying with this lunatic like Lane?" And she's like, he's not a crazy. And then this is why Marge is terrible because she says, Nancy said they got into a fight earlier, and she's like, "Well, it wasn't that serious." "Well, maybe you don't think murder is serious." Like, bitch, what kind of mom are you?
I hate that. I
Found her
hate
dead
that.
friends.
Yeah,
God.
and that's another red flag with the parents
Mhm.
and the adults in this movie is like you're like something is not right when they're saying stuff like that in the situation.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And
It's not okay.
Lieutenant Thompson comforts her. He does comfort her.
Mhm.
But it's like, and I could get where he's coming from as a police officer. He's wanting to, hey, why is my daughter with these crazy people? What did you see? What's going on? But for her to say that, it's just terrible. So
It's almost
then,
as if it was very condescending and like kind of absent-minded of how old her daughter was because she was really treating her like a child in that scene.
mhm.
Like, oh, you don't know how to comprehend this.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, we know that they're harboring a secret, but
Mm.
and that might come to play with how they react to certain things as well. Because in the original draft, Nancy had an older sister that is no longer around because of Freddy.
Mm.
So they've already kind of experienced that loss. That's not in the movie at all, but that was the original intention, was that she had an older sister that is no longer
I
here.
feel like that would give it such a Stand By Me vibe
Mhm.
of like the
Is that
older
a
brother
commentary?
was favored and is gone now, and now the
Yeah,
parents are super weird. Ugh.
yeah, yeah. What'd you say, Derek?
Was that in the commentary or?
Yeah, that's in an earlier draft. It was in an earlier draft
Uh,
of the script. That was one of the original intentions. Was
it
that,
would
and
have
then
given more context, I think, to the way that they reacted to it, and also, uh, not to spoil a later part of the movie, but like
well,
how they dealt
whatever.
with it.
Yeah, exactly.
It
But
would
I
have,
think the
yeah.
reason it didn't is because it had been too convoluted. The movies, he's trying to streamline it, get the ideas across. Probably why
Yeah.
it had to spend time fleshing that out too. Um, so the next scene, Nancy's on her way to school, and this is where we get the first hint that Marge is an alcoholic because she's pouring the old vodka in her orange juice kind of thing, listening to the news report. And Nancy says she wants to go to school. She doesn't want to stay home. She can't sleep. She wants to go to school. So she's like, "You shouldn't go to school, but okay. That's fine." So Nancy leaves and she sees a guy over in the corner, and like a guy in a suit and like a fucking FBI guy, essentially. And she gets kidnapped by Rod, who pulls her aside and says, "Hey, they're going to kill me. Everybody wants to kill me." And she has a conversation with him where she's like, "Who was it?" And he said, "I never saw the guy." And she's like, "The door was locked from your side." And she said, "Don't look at me like I'm some fucking fruitcake. I'm warning you." And as soon as he says that, Lieutenant Thompson pops up with a gun and says, "Back away from her real slow, son, like your ass depended on it." And he tries to get away. He's caught, and Nancy's pissed because she was used as bait, essentially, by her dad. What do you guys think of this scene?
Well, first of all, I like how you said the FBI guy was in a corner when he was just like out standing behind a tree.
Well, I meant on the corner of like the
street, all right.
On the corner of the street. He's just standing there. Yeah, like beside a tree, just standing on the corner.
Yeah, like, I was really confused by this scene. I was like, what is, like, who is that? What is, I mean, she figures it out. She's like, okay, I was being followed. But I was like, why? Like, she should have never been allowed to go to school. And that guy, I mean, if you were that parent specifically, you would not want that guy jumping out and, like, snatching your daughter off the sidewalk.
No, and I don't think he knew that. They were trying to catch him before that happened. But they didn't get him. But they ended up, catching him. What do you think, Derek?
Well, I do think it's kind of genius that they used her as bait. That they had an idea that he might try to contact her. And obviously her dad was pretty close by, so I don't feel like, he ever thought that she was in really great danger. But either way, yeah, it was a good scene. It makes sense to what they're trying to convey with it. And he is wearing a jacket, and I saw palm trees at one point in this movie, and I'm just wondering how uncomfortable he must have felt in a leather jacket.
Yeah, so the movie's supposed
with no shirt.
Yeah,
he didn't even have a shirt on.
He didn't, and no shoes either. The movie was shot in Venice, California, but it's supposed to be Springwood, Illinois.
It kind of had like a werewolf vibe going on.
He did. He kind of looked like he was, American Werewolf in London. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. So Nancy goes to class, and we get our next dream sequence. And this is also the dream sequences in Wes Craven's first movie are awesome. They're just all good. They're all good. So here we get a dream sequence where Nancy's in class. She falls asleep. This guy's reading out of this book. Did you see who the teacher was, by the way? Lynn
Shay. Yes.
Yep. Very young Lynn Shay. And so she falls asleep in class, Nancy does. And the guy starts reading all creepy. He's like, watch out. Real creepy.
Yes.
And then she sees Tina standing in a doorway inside of a body bag. And she's like, Nancy. And then Nancy follows her, sees a blood trail, and then sees her laying at the end of the hallway. Her legs go up in the air, and she's pulled by an invisible force off.
So good.
So then she runs.
Forget about it.
Forget about it.
So beautiful. That scene is so beautiful.
Isn't that the best?
Yes.
Such a scary image, right?
So scary.
Well, like even my earliest thoughts of this movie, like going back, there are a couple of scenes that really stick out. This is actually one of them. Like the scene where she falls asleep in the school and Tina's in a body bag. Like I remember watching that as a kid and like, what the?
Yeah, what is going on, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Especially when her legs go up and she's dragged off, and then there's a trail of blood.
A trail of blood.
Yeah.
So good.
Like follow the red.
Yep. Follow the streak. Follow the red brick road. The Wizard of Fred. So she runs into the hall monitor who's wearing Freddy's striped shirt and says, "Where's your hall pass?" And she says the famous line. Say it, Lydia.
I don't know. What did she say?
You don't remember it either?
No.
Like fuck your hall pass or something like that.
Or screw your pass.
Screw
your pass. Yeah. Because she says, where's your hall pass? Screw your pass. And she runs off. It's repeated in Wes Craven's New Nightmare, actually. And
nice.
So she's like, no running in the hallways with Freddy's glove. She runs down and ends up in a boiler room. And while she's in this boiler room, she gets attacked by Freddy finally. And he starts like coming after her and he's scraping his claw on the pipes and he's like going with his tongue and shit saying, "Come to Freddy." And she's like, "It's only a dream, it's only a dream." And she burns herself on the pipe, which wakes her up.
Mm-hmm.
And once she wakes up, she's like, runs out. The teacher says, go ahead. And she's like, "You'll need a hall pass." She runs off. And when she gets out of the thing, she sees the burn mark from where she burned herself, realizing that it happens in the dream, it happens in real life. What do you think of this dream sequence? I mean, we talked about the first half. What do you think of the second half?
Oh man, that would piss me off so bad if I woke up and had a big burn on my arm. Ugh.
Yeah.
I really
Probably.
Sorry. Really think her acting is so good.
Mm-hmm. She's really good in this. Really good.
It's so like her freaking out in class really freaks me out. Like it's so believable that she just like has this. I mean, and like it gives me anxiety just thinking about if that ever happened, and like all the students just looking at you like you're some kind of freak, you know?
Yeah.
So freaky.
What do you think, Derek?
So side tangent. Did you ever fall asleep in class and like catch yourself and you're like,
yeah, because you feel like you're falling? Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Oh, anyway, there's that. But no, the scene is fantastic, and it also has a great reveal. When she burns herself, that is a big moment in this movie.
Yeah.
Especially for someone who is understanding of what's going on and realizes, like Tina, I don't think really understood when she got cut, like what was going on. And Nancy definitely does. And so that's really her tangent because I think this is where she starts to get the book. The idea starts to conjure in her mind of like what she could do with that knowledge.
Yeah, it starts to it all starts to make sense to her. So it's also important for another reason. It also shows her that she can wake herself up out of these dreams with certain, either burning herself or alarm clock or something can wake her up out of this dream. And when she's awake, she's safe, right? Yeah. She feels like she's safe once that happens. So she goes to visit Rod in jail, and she has a conversation with Rod. And he tells her, what happened, and that he never touched her. He doesn't know what's going on. And he said he's been having these bad dreams about this guy with finger knives. So she goes home and she's like, oh my God, he's having the dream too. So Nancy goes to take a bath. And we got to talk about this scene. So she's in the bathtub and she's just kind of running the water over herself. And she's just, she hasn't slept in a while. She's starting to feel it. And her mom tells her, don't fall asleep. You could drown in the tub. And she's like, I'm fine, Mother. And she's like, I'll make you some warm milk. She says, warm milk? Gross. It's such a teenage thing. I love it. It's just like a perfect, that's exactly. So she dozes off and Freddy's hand wakes up or comes up from between her legs and reaches for her face.
Well, I love the cat and mouse here.
Yeah.
Because he comes up through the bottom at first.
Between her legs,
mom knocks on the door and he goes back down. So that was wakes. Like her starting to doze off and then waking back up.
Mm-hmm.
It's so great. And then when she does finally fall asleep and goes through the bottom, dude, this one is actually one of the scary. Dude, I used to reenact this in the bathtub. It was so scary.
It is a scary idea, isn't it? That you get pulled under the bathtub. It's such the way they do it, she gets pulled under and then she's in this bottomless abyss of water. And she's, trying
to...
this
tiny little hole
in
the tub.
That's a drain, yeah. And it's just like trying to get up, and then she, the mom knocks on the door, wakes her up, or she crawls out and yells, which her mom hears, and then she realizes that she's awake, and then she plays it off like, oh, I just fell asleep because she doesn't know what to say to these people yet. She doesn't know what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
So she, tells her everything's fine, and she goes and gets the stay awake medicine from the cabinet. So, what do you guys think of this scene here? Like, it's like super suspenseful, like you said, Derek. It's probably one of the scarier moments. What are you laughing at?
Right.
I just have so many nightmares. I can't even talk about this movie. It's ridiculous.
You feeling it?
I'm feeling it.
So, the next big bit you talked about earlier, Derek, when she's, we'll get into it later, but when she reads the book, her and Glenn are talking, and she's reading like that survival book, which plays in a little bit later. Yeah, the traps and stuff. But
Scooby-Doo that shit.
Scooby-Doo that shit, yeah.
Still a line.
So she is laying in bed, dozing off, and she's watching TV. She's trying to stay awake. And what movie's playing on the TV? Did you guys see what movie that was?
Evil Dead.
It was Evil Dead. That's right. They're both New Line properties at the time. And so that started Sam Raimi and Wes Craven's feud, their fake movie feud, where they would, so this is the first one. So when we get in Evil Dead 2, we'll point out Freddy's glove. And actually what started it, that's a lie, what started it was Evil Dead, of course, with the torn up Hills Have Eyes poster. So then Wes is like, well, put Evil Dead on the TV in this one. So there it is. So Glenn comes up, talks to her, and she says, hey, I need you to do me a favor. I need you to keep watch for me. That's all she says. I mean, we get like this little thing of, need you to keep watch for me. And we cut to her outside, and she's running down the street, trying to make her way to the jail cell, essentially. And she's like, Glenn? And he pops out behind a bush. She's like, what? And she's like, okay. And she keeps going. Well, she runs into Tina again in the body bag. Except this time, her feet are like a bunch of snails and snakes. And then
like
this...
Eels.
And then this... centipede crawls out of her mouth.
Gross. Out of like a fake mouth.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure it's like a dummy or something.
Yeah, dummy mouth probably. But
Protein.
yeah. So she ends up making her way to the jail cell and sees Freddy coming into the jail cell. She watches him walk through. He walks straight through the bars, T-1000 style. And actually, T-1000 walks through Freddy style, because Freddy did it first. So she walks through, and she's hollering at Rod to wake up. Rod wakes up. Then she's attacked by Freddy. And They battle in, and then she starts to run upstairs. Guys, this scene. Mm-hmm. She starts to run up the stairs. Freddy breaks the window, and he's wearing Tina's face. And she says, and speaking in Tina's voice, he says, come to Freddy. She starts to run up the stairs, and it turns into oatmeal. And her feet just stick in the stairs as she's running up. Well, yeah, I think so. But like, so she sticks in it. She finally makes it up to the top of the stairs. She shuts the door and says, he isn't real, it's just a dream. She's staring in the mirror. Freddy busts through the mirror. They have a little fight. He claws her, and feathers go everywhere. And she knocks over her alarm clock, which sets off. And she wakes up and realizes that she's at home. And Glenn had fallen asleep. He was supposed to wake her up if he saw anything. And she's like, "What'd you do? You shit! You fell asleep." What do you guys think of? And then the button on the scene is she sees one of the feathers floating from her dream, floating in the air. What do you guys think of this scene?
I think that's very clever, but I do think she was a little bit harsh, cussing at young Johnny Depp like that.
You just always protect young Johnny Depp.
Well, he's so young.
Yeah, what do you think, Derek?
I think it's great. I think it does a good job of moving the story along, and it brings you back to what's this, Rod? I think that's what his name is, right?
Yep.
So it brings you back to him, and it kind of foreshadows, who's next. So yeah, it keeps the pace of the movie going. It looks good, and I'm sure that. And I'm sure that Johnny Depp was just like, "Oh man, I hope I never encounter another woman in my life who's as mean as her." To me.
Oh.
Yeah, he's like, "I just fell asleep. I don't understand." To his defense, he doesn't understand yet. He doesn't know what's going on.
He doesn't. Yeah.
And he is so tired.
Yeah, he's so tired. So then Nancy and Glenn sneak out of the house and go to make their way to the jail because they know Rod's in danger. Well, she knows Rod's in danger, so they're trying to save her. And Rod falls asleep in the cell, and Freddy, we just see the sheet come alive and wrap itself like a snake around Rod's neck. He wakes up and sees it, and Freddy pulls and strangles him. It makes it look like he hung himself, essentially, on the sheets. So they're like, well, this kid hung himself. So they go to his funeral. What do you think of Rod's death before we move on?
I think his neck broke. I feel like there was a noise.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That was so disappointing to me. I was like hoping they would get in there and save him,
Yeah.
Like, but they like made that like snap sound. Like it's like, oh, there's no saving him.
Yeah.
Damn. It was heartbreaking.
What do you think, Derek?
I think it was clever the way that they incorporated his death as a natural thing that would occur in a jail cell, i.e. Jeffrey Epstein, who knows? But anyway.
Freddy did it. Now we know.
I know.
Oh my gosh.
Watch out, Robert. They're coming for you. But no, it took an element of like realism of like what, how would you
react
to somebody dying in a prison, and that that's there for a reason. But it was great, and I love the kind of snake sheets, man. That is also like super
cool.
scary.
Yeah, it's cool. Of course, it was filmed in reverse.
Mm-hmm.
Then pulling it off, and then they reverse the film so it snakes through. But great stuff. So at Rod's funeral, she tells them who's after her. She says, "It's this guy. I don't know his name, but I can tell you who Rod, the killer's still out there. He's who killed Rod. He wears a dirty red and green sweater. He has knives for fingers." And they look at each other, and we get that push in. And it's like, maybe you should have her take some time away from school. And she's like, "I've got something better. I'm going to get her help." Fucking Ronnie Blakely, Jesus. So
the only thing that would have made that scene better if she would have pulled a bottle of vodka out of her purse and been like, "Here, drink this.
Yeah.
This will make you feel better, honey.
This will solve your problems."
we end up at a dream clinic, and they're trying to see what she's dreaming about and check her sleep patterns. And while they're there, basically she has a nightmare, and she pulls Freddy's hat out of the real world, and she gets clawed in the arm. So she wakes up bleeding with 4 marks on her arm. I don't know how they would try to even explain that. And she has a hat that she didn't have before. So they're like, well, I guess she has nightmares. Why don't you get out of my fucking lab?
No, they're like, oh, she must have like hid that hat somehow earlier.
Yeah.
And then they're like, we need to like put her back to even more sleep immediately.
No. Yeah, she's like,
after they have, the doctors in this team.
Yeah, at least the mom's like, no, I think she's had enough. We're good on this. You know who plays the doctor?
Who?
Yeah.
That's Charles Fleischer. Also known as who, Derek?
I don't. Pinky? His brain.
No. He is known even more as Roger Rabbit.
Oh.
No way.
That's Roger Rabbit. That's Roger Rabbit.
Weird.
Yeah.
But I am right. He is brain, right?
I don't know that one. Not
You
sure
know,
about that. But he's definitely
In the brain?
Yeah, he's definitely Roger Rabbit. What?
There's something about that guy that I genuinely didn't know that, but I was like, there's something about this guy that like he must be in something. Like
He's
I knew
also-
like, he
He's in
was
a
from
lot of
something
movies.
else.
He's also in Zodiac. Remember
Oh,
when he
really?
goes down to the basement? When there's the last guy he visits, and he's like trying to like tell him to come down to the basement where the shit is. Remember that?
That's him.
Yeah.
That's him. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. He's been in a lot of movies.
Zodiac is a good one. Zodiac's
That's one of my favorites.
Yeah, it's a good one. It's a good one.
Oh, that's one of my favorites. That is such a scary scene.
It's
that
so
guy creeps
scary.
me out.
That's
Probably why I probably recognized him like subliminally.
Yeah.
That I was like, that guy is in something.
Yeah, that's I would Gyllenhaal my ass out of there too. Like, nah, bro. Meter's running. Meter's
Oh
running.
my
Gotta
gosh.
go.
So stressful.
Yeah.
Ooh.
We'll talk about Zodiac another time. So, after Roger Rabbit does his thing with her, we get this scene where her and her mom have basically a throwdown. Like, she's tired of it. Her mom's, not listening. She's like, his name is Fred Krueger, Mom. Fred Krueger. And she ends up slapping Nancy across the face. And Nancy's like, oh, no, you didn't. And so when she, basically she takes the bottle and smashes it on the ground and walks out. She's like, I'm tired of your drinking. Fuck you. Smashes the bottle on the ground. Goes out. And that's where she meets with Glenn. What you were talking about, Derek, with the...
they have lunch.
They have lunch, and she's reading the survival. Because now she realized, if this can come out of the dream, then maybe he can come out of the dream. And if he can come out of the dream, maybe he can be injured or killed. So...
Which makes no sense to me.
I mean, it makes perfect sense, really. I mean, if you're like, if I can pull this out of the dream, then why can't I pull him out of the dream? And then if nothing else, my dad can be there to arrest him, or something. I can understand the logic. And it's well set up because it's, ABC. So she goes back home, and there are bars on all of her windows. There's just bars everywhere. And she's like, Mother! She walks around the corner with a cigarette. And she's like, what's with all the bars? And she says, it's for protection. Protection from what? And she's like, well, I got to tell you a story. So she takes her down to the basement and tells her the story of Fred Krueger, which is this child murderer who was killing kids in the neighborhood, who was let go on a technicality because somebody didn't sign a search warrant. And so he was let go. So the parents decided to take this into their own hands. They caught up with him at his place and burned it to the ground. Burnt him in the place to the ground. And she says, we even took his finger knives. And she pulls out of the furnace Freddy's glove. So now we know the secret. Freddy is seeking revenge on the children of the people that murdered him. The Elm Street parents. So the Elm Street kids are paying for the sins of their parents. What do you guys think of this revelation?
So it's great, and it comes full circle, and it gives motive and all that great stuff. I can't tell you how much more like enriching it probably would have made the story to have incorporated the fact, like, you know, she did have a sibling who died. Like I feel like that I'm gonna get over it, I promise, but that would have added a new element to this. It would have I would have liked to have seen that in the storyline, but I think it's fantastic, and it makes you wonder. Maybe whenever he comes back through, there are two glove hands in the reality now.
Two glove hands.
He's like, I'm Freddy. I'm Freddy Scissorhands.
Yes. Johnny Depp wouldn't have been okay with two gloves on him, I don't think.
Now you're encroaching on my territory. What do you think of the revelation, Lydia?
I love it. I think it's great. I especially love when she's like, he can't hurt you, honey, because mommy killed him.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna confess this murder to you. Now you're implicated in it.
Now you have to live with this burden as well.
Yeah.
No,
mommy killed him.
That is a great line. I love that. Love that line reading too. But yeah, it's one of my all-time favorite backstories for a slasher villain and just a villain in general. It's like, because two wrongs don't make a right? I mean, that's kind of the story. Is, as a parent, you would obviously want to kill this guy. You'd want that revenge, but then what does that do? It creates this unkillable monster. So it's very thematically deep, and it's a cool link between them. So she decides she's going to go to work. So she goes to sneak out, and she can't. She goes to sneak out with Glenn. She has a phone call with Glenn, says, this is what we're going to do. And they make a plan, and she says, whatever you do, say it with me, guys. She says to Glenn, whatever you do, don't fall
eat
asleep.
Cheerios.
No, it's don't fall asleep. Don't eat Cheerios. You got to eat those Cheerios. Eat your Wheaties.
I'm sorry, that got me.
Why didn't you say yellow snow? Why'd you say Cheerios? Don't eat Cheerios.
Should have said.
You should have said, don't fuck with the babysitter.
Yeah.
Yeah, she tells him the classic lines, don't fall asleep. And of course, what does Glenn do, guys?
Falls asleep.
Cheerios. He falls asleep.
He's a sleepy guy.
He is a sleepy boy. So his mom comes up and sees that. Mom comes up and sees he's asleep. He's got headphones on, listening to his records. He's got the TV laying on the bed with him, and listen, has MTV playing or whatever. And she's like, Glenn, wakes him up, says, "How can you listen to your records and your television at the same time?" "Well, I'm just watching the tube, Mom. Miss Nude America's on later tonight." "Well, how are you going to hear what she's going to say?" "Who cares what she says?"
Yep. Classic.
I like how his mom calls bullshit too.
Yeah, she knows he's full of shit. She's like, yeah. Whatever. So Glenn falls asleep. Nancy gets a phone call, and she answers it, and it's Freddy's voice. And he says, "I'm your boyfriend now, Nancy." And his tongue comes through the receiver and kisses her. What do you guys, licks her? What do you think of this bit?
So gross. So gross.
It's very ingenious.
Pretty iconic, right?
Yeah. It was a really good idea. Because, I mean, in a dream, anything is possible. So it's just fun what they decided to do with it. You know what I mean? Exactly.
So she realizes that Glenn's in danger. So she goes to go downstairs she tries to call. And her parents, Glenn's dad just over there staring at her up the window. He's like, "You know what? I think that kid's like some kind of nut or something."
Yeah.
So when Nancy calls, she's like, it's her. She wants to talk to Glenn. She said it's very urgent and very private. He said, "Glenn's asleep. He'll call you in the morning." Hangs up and says, "You just got to be firm with these kids. We'll just take the phone off the hook." That dad character, he's just like, "Let me tell you something." He's wearing like a pocket protector.
God created dads, babe. Like God created dads.
Yeah.
So,
Nancy, can I just say before we get to Glenn's next scene,
yes,
that I am almost 100% certain that crop top is the reason Johnny Depp is a superstar.
I think he borrowed that crop top from my dad.
I was like, this whole movie, okay, my feelings about Johnny Depp were, wow, he's almost too young in this for me to even be attracted to him. Like, I just don't even care. And then like that scene with the crop top, and I was like, yep, that's why he's an A-list celebrity today. Because that scene, everybody was like, oh, this is cute boy. And then they're like, heads exploded at this scene, okay?
That's how I feel about the nurse from Nightmare on Elm Street Part 3 when we get to that one.
Your head explodes.
That wasn't the only thing exploding.
That was my,
Anyway.
Let's go past this.
So Nancy tries to run downstairs to go, and the door's locked. And it's locked from the inside. And, of course, her mom's laying on the couch. Locked. She's all drunk and shit. Locked. So Nancy's freaking out because there's nothing she can do. She's trying to figure it out. So Glenn falls asleep. And guys, the other showstopper in this fucking movie. He gets sucked into his bed. Freddy comes out, pulls him into the bed. He gets pulled in. The TV and everything goes in. And then this geyser of blood shoots out of the bed, covers the whole ceiling. It starts moving in weird angles. It covers the whole room. The parents come in and see it's dripping blood. What do you guys think of Glenn's death?
The best. It's the best thing. I can't even put it into words. I'll never forget the first time I saw that. And how I was like not even scared. I was so happy. Like, this is the thing that makes you a horror lover, is when you just see something like that and you're like, yes. Especially when you're young, you're just like, ugh.
Agree 100%. Derek.
It's interesting the choices that they made in this movie, right? Because like, who thinks of that? Who thinks of, you know what? I'm just gonna have him pop out of this waterbed or was it even a waterbed? I don't know, maybe it wasn't.
No, it was a regular
Like,
bed.
pop through this bed, suck him down in the middle, and then I'm just gonna like spew a bunch of blood out. Like,
Yeah, like way too much.
Wes Craven. Yeah.
Well, yeah,
It
that's
was
what I'm
way
saying.
too
Like,
much blood.
That's what makes it the best. Yeah.
Perfect. But it just it's so ingenious. It's great. And then when the parents walk in, they're definitely not blaming this on Nancy. She's locked in her house.
And what the hell happened? You know what I mean? Like, how do you explain that? There's no way to explain that.
Like, how? I can't even explain it. I saw it.
It's like what you said, Lydia. It is one of the most indelible images of this movie. And it's one of those, horror fan making scenes. Because you're like, you see it and you're like, that is glorious. That's ingenious. This is what I live to watch rooms covered, drenched in blood. That's what that's what I live for. So yeah, beautiful scene. Geyser of blood, 10 out of 10. So
yes.
So then the final countdown's on, and Nancy is like, well, it's time to go. So she goes and tucks her mom into bed. Her mom's passed out drunk. She tied one on for sure, tucks her in the bed, sets up all of her traps from her survival. We just see her doing things like poking holes in a light bulb. We don't know what she's doing. We see her put a hammer up. And then she sets her timer. And she goes to find Freddy. So she falls asleep, and there's this beautiful shot where she's laying on the bed, and her hair is sprawled out, and we push in on her as she's falling asleep. It's one of my favorite images from this movie.
Where her eyes just look so mad and determined.
Determined. She's ready to go.
Yeah.
And then, Derek, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Oh, okay. You disappeared for a second. I was confused. So yeah, she looks so determined, and she's like, and also super tired. We forgot to mention at this point she also has a gray streak in her hair from all the stress she's going through. And there's that great line where she goes, "I look 20 years old." I was like, well,
yes.
He said that early on whenever he messed up and fell asleep.
Yeah, I look 20 years old. And I'm like, I wish I looked 20 years old again.
It is really funny.
So she falls asleep, and she ends up going through the whole thing looking for Freddy. She follows him down through a boiler room. She's everywhere looking for this guy. And then finally, he attacks. And they fall from the boiler room through onto the yard. And then through the terrace. And she's like, "Where are you? Where are you?" She can't find him. And he appears, and her alarm starts to go off. So she bravely dives on top of him. And they're struggling, and the alarm goes off and wakes her up. And she wakes up, and she's holding the trellis in her arms. And she's like, doesn't see him. She says, "Maybe I am crazy." I was like, well, no. You have a trellis in your arms. But never mind. That Freddy pops up from behind her, and she grabs a coffee pot and smashes it over his head, and then locks him in the room. She goes over, breaks the window out, and she's hollering at this fucking stupid cop because the cops have arrived over at Glenn's house. And I've got to take a sidebar here. There's a great scene where they're pulling out the buckets of blood from Glenn's house, and the dad sees it, and he goes, "Oh." And he's like, it's a great, great little moment. But the cop's standing there, and because he tells him, "Watch my daughter's house and see if anything strange happens," because he has a conversation with Nancy from her window. So she busts out the window and she's like, help, help. And he's like, it's gonna be okay, miss. And she says, go get my dad, you asshole.
Yes.
So Freddy busts through the door and a freaking sledgehammer comes down and smashes him in the stomach. So then he tumbles down, falls down the stairs. Nancy runs from him, lures him into the kitchen where she has into the living room where she has a tripwire. He steps on it, the light bulb explodes. Then she lures him down to the basement. He follows her down. Then we get what was in the Guinness Book of World Records for the longest time as one of the single longest burn stunts. So she takes him down stairs, lures him around, covers him in essentially gasoline or flammable liquid, and catches him on fire. So this stuntman that's on fire, he's on fire. He runs up the stairs, falls down the stairs, then starts to climb back up the stairs, all while on fire. Which is fucking phenomenal. It's a phenomenal stunt. So at this point, the officer has gotten Lieutenant Thompson, who runs over with a bunch of officers, and they bust down the door. And she tells him, because he sees the smoke and everything, he's like, oh my God. They go there, they see the rest of the cops go down to the basement. Nancy sees the fire footprints leading upstairs, which is a cool ass image. It's so cool. They follow it upstairs, and Freddy's on top of Marge, and he's like kind of strangling her while he's on fire still. So she hits him in the back with the chair. Lieutenant Thompson covers him with a blanket to put out the fire, pulls it off, and all we see is Marge's burnt corpse kind of wave at him and then get sucked into the bed with this cool lightning effect. What do you guys think of all of this up to this point?
That's a lot to take in, Jamie.
It is a lot.
You go on these tangents, and then
I was trying to find a good spot to cut it, and I was like, I can't. I just got to keep going until we hit a good stopping point.
I was so into it. I was just like, then what happens? What happens next?
Tell me more.
Yeah.
What do you think of this third act here before we get to the final ending?
It's really intense. I don't know how I feel about the booby traps.
I love it. So Wes Craven staple. Love it.
Okay.
He also does
John
it in...
Hughes was taking notes.
Yeah, he's like, yes, sounds interesting.
Maybe get a little kid to...
What if we use a blowtorch instead?
I guess it's just the specific booby traps that she chose for, like, she was like looking into like self-defense and stuff, and then it's like now she's filling light bulbs with explosives and stuff.
Well, it's an easy booby trap. You just fill it with gunpowder and plug it in, and then you have the tripwire. So they're all believable, but Wes Craven did the same thing in Hills Have Eyes. The whole final act of that is booby traps. He loves booby traps. And the entirety of People Under the Stairs is just fucking booby traps.
I guess it's just maybe just Nancy. I don't know. She's kind of relatable to me. Like, I just feel like I never would have gotten that far. Like, gotten as far as she did at her age, especially.
You didn't read that book she was reading.
I didn't read the book, so it must have been a good one.
Derek, what do you think?
I think it's great. And the booby traps, it's kind of unique to this type of movie. Well, maybe you said The Hills Have Eyes. Does it predate this?
Yeah.
Okay. So maybe it was recycled there, but either way.
10 years, yeah.
Yeah, I do think it's pretty cool, and it also
It's fun too. It's
gives
a lot of fun.
it's a lot of fun, and you're kind of putting this scary character through his paces at that point.
Getting
Like
your revenge.
I'm
Yeah.
gonna, yeah, I'm gonna hurt you. I'm gonna blow, this light bulb up in your face. I'm gonna hit you with a sledgehammer. I'm gonna catch you on fire. Like it was a lot of fun. And then whenever they go up, dude, the footsteps that lead up to the mom's room is just so great.
Yeah, it's such a
Because it's
great
so
image.
suspenseful, like where you kind of know where they're going, but like what happened? And then he's
Yeah.
on top of her, still on fire, and burned her. And then when they pull the sheet off, it just see her. And this is a great visual.
Yeah, I
The
love this
corpse
visual.
lowering
Yeah.
down with the lightning and
Yeah,
the mist.
effect. Yeah, in the mist.
Right.
Yeah, and then it just transitions to the flat bed. So after that happens, Nancy has this realization. It's almost like she can feel Freddy in the room still. She has this realization, and she's like, "You need to go downstairs. I'll be okay." Sends Lieutenant Thompson downstairs, and she turns her back on the bed. And what we talked about earlier, Freddy breaks the realm of dream and reality and appears out of the bed, cuts out of it, and tears up the sheet. And Nancy turns around and she talks to him and basically tells him, "I'm finished with you. I'm done with you. I'm taken back. I know the secret now. This is all a dream. And I'm taking back every single amount of energy I gave you." She took her power back and says, "You're nothing to me. You're shit." And then Freddy goes to attack her and he dissipates into nothingness. So this was supposed to be the actual ending. Well, the next bit, kind of. So she opens the door and she walks into a bright sunny day. Her mom's there, says she's done drinking. "No, honey, I think I'm done drinking. I just don't feel like it anymore." Her performance is something. So they get into the car, and then it's a convertible. All of her friends are back. She tells Freddy, "I want all my friends back. I want my friends and family back. I'm done with it." So everybody's back, and they get into this convertible, and then the top comes down, and it's red and green. Then the windows start to roll up, and the car starts driving on its own. And she's like, "Mom, Mom." And as it drives away, we see the jump rope girls. And then Freddy's hand bursts through the window and pulls Marge through it. And
So
we end.
funny.
It is very funny. So what do you guys think of the ending of this movie?
I think it was almost perfect.
Almost. Besides the pull, yeah.
Man, it gets me how it does not look great.
It's fine. I still think it's fun.
It is fun. It is definitely fun.
It definitely looks better than the ending of the remake. But which was
How do you
made
forget what
almost
that is?
similar idea, just horribly executed. What do you think, Derek?
I'm gonna have an unpopular opinion with this part.
Mm-hmm.
I think it dilutes the last scene.
I 1000% agree. And guess who else agrees with you? Take a wild guess. Wes Craven agrees with you.
The production company made him put that in there.
New Line, Bob Shea made him put
Set up a sequel.
To set up a sequel. So Wes's original ending wasn't there was not going to be a franchise. His original ending was Nancy has that scene with Freddy. She goes outside. Her friends are back. Everything's fine. It's a happy ending. She drives away. Bob Shea was like, "Well, we need..." So he was having they shot some of it too. You can see him on the special features. They had Freddy driving the car. They had Freddy being a bus driver to pick her up from school the next morning. And then Wes finally settled on the compromise was we'll have the car the thing come down in the car and it'll be red and green. That way you know he's still around. But he hates it because thematically it kills the scene that came before it, which is Nancy taking her power back.
Yeah.
Now in hindsight, it's a good thing they did. I mean, they probably could have figured it out anyway, but it's a good thing they did that because we wouldn't have these beautiful films that we have following it. But
we could have.
They could have figured it out. Yeah, they just would have started it, and he's back. Whatever. I mean, in part 4,
I right now I can think of a better way to do this. It like you could have had the paper boy going down on his bicycle, throwing the morning paper, and then as they drive off, you pan over and you see mystery death of this teen, and to let you know that
you know what they should have done. They should have had the mailman from Children of the Night just waving.
But yeah, that is literally my only critique of this movie. It kills that scene.
I feel that the best ending would have been to give Nancy her happy ending, and then you know how the best compromise would be? Easy. Is you have them drive away, and as they drive away, you pan over and you see the Jump Rope Girls singing the song, perfect. And then you cut because then it's like, oh, he's still out there, but that's not what Bob Shea wanted. Bob Shea wanted one last scare.
I know where.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Bob Shea wanted one last scare and wanted Freddy, and Wes is like, I'm not showing Freddy again, so I'll just show his arm. And that's why they came up with. That's why it looked so bad because it wasn't meant to be there. They had to quickly film it.
And the dummy through the window, I bet.
That's what I mean. That's what looks bad. Yeah. So yeah, that's my critique of it as well. But I think the ending is still fun. I like the car. Mm-hmm. The thing coming down the car is fun. That's fun. But it does undercut the thematic weight of that scene before where Nancy takes her power back. The movie's about her taking her power because she also becomes the parent at that point to her mom in the previous scene. She's tucking her into bed. She's telling her dad what to do. She's grown and has taken her power. But that is Wes Craven's Nightmare on Elm Street. So let's start with you, Derek. What are your thoughts on this movie? What are your grades? I'm turning into like a macho man, Randy Savage when I'm talking. But what are your thoughts and your grade for this one?
So it's hard to top this movie. It's so iconic. It's genuinely scary. The concept is scary. If you ever get an opportunity to get into the backstory of how Wes Craven came up with this, it's super interesting. A lot of the choices that they made were just so unique and executed very well. I can't think of another movie where they built an entire room to literally move to track so that they could create some of the effects that they did in this movie. It's just so good. And the only critique we just covered it that I would have is the way that it ended. That one piece does take it from a 10 to like a 9.875.
Ooh, high rating from Derek. Lydia, what are your thoughts and what's your rating?
I think this movie is great. I think it's extremely entertaining. I highly recommend to anyone to watch it. The effects, the scenes, the characters are iconic. Love it. I'm going to give this one a 9.5.
So, I agree with both of you as far as, we can't overstate the impact of Nightmare on Elm Street. It revitalized the slasher genre. And this movie came out in 1984. The slasher genre was on the decline. And I mean, not really necessarily on the decline, because I mean, we were having our huge slasher movies like Jason and such, but it was being diluted with copycats. It was always a guy with a knife and a guy with a knife. And here comes Wes Craven. He's like, you know what I'm going to do is throw this batshit thing at you. And it's so well executed. It's so iconic. Puts Freddy on the Mount Rushmore of slasher villains. And it's just almost a perfect movie. We have those flaws with the ending. Having said that, I still don't think it can detract from my 10 out of 10 rating I'm going to give it. It's a 10 out of 10, guys. It's a 10 out of 10. It's Freddy. It's Wes Craven's masterpiece. Love it. Let's take a second here before we get into the next segment of the show, and let's just talk about Robert Englund. We've not mentioned him
real quick. I just want to say one thing. You touched on something to where like the genre was before this movie, and then where it went afterwards. It was such a unique idea to have this person that's in a dream. It's like, you know, those moments in, you can pick any industry you want, like those innovative moments that really like take it to a next level. And this was definitely
watershed moments. Yeah, watershed moments. But let's talk about Robert. Robert Englund is great in every single one of these movies, and it all starts here. What do you guys think of his performance in this one?
I think he was just beginning to find himself.
Yeah.
Like you said, we didn't even mention him this whole time. Like, how did we go through this whole episode and not mention his name?
Well, because I had a plan to mention him now.
Well, yeah, but it's like he really is hidden and kind of, you know, mysterious in this one. And I think that's what I really like about this one, is that you don't have too many answers too quick. Like, in the rest of them, you know exactly who you're dealing with.
Mm-hmm.
So I that's what I do enjoy about this one a lot.
What do you think of Robert in this movie, Derek?
In this movie, I think he is kind of like still green. He's figuring out who the character is, because he is this character. Like, and it's different than Jason or Michael Myers. Exactly right. You can, as long as you get the figure right, you can really put anybody behind those masks. But like, until they rebooted it and did a terrible job doing that, like,
what are you talking about, man? Bad News Bears.
Nobody could play Freddy. Like, he is that character, and you know that's amazing that he had the impact on the genre that he did. But in this movie, yeah, you know, it was like he just took the training wheels off and he was, you know, seeing what the bike could do.
I love him in this movie because we get to see the start of what we're going to end up seeing, because we get hints of his personality. We see that he's a evil, maniacal, mean entity that also enjoys the pain of others. He gets amusement in he laughs at it and jokes about it. He gets a sadistic glee from it, and you get all of that in his scenes and his performance. And then he ends up broadening it as the series goes on, because then he becomes the star of the series. So then you don't go and say, oh, I wonder who just like all of our classics, besides Halloween, where we want to see Laurie Strode. Every other one of them, where we don't say, I wonder who the teams are going to be this time. Like, who gives a shit? Let's see Jason slaughter some teams, you know?
Yeah.
So, and then in this series as well, Nancy's very integral and she's great. Heather Langenkamp's great in it. But yeah, Robert Englund, irreplaceable. He's amazing. So guys, you know what time it is. It is time that we Atkinize Nightmare on Elm Street. Who would the great Tom Atkins play in this film?
Right here. Go with me.
Go, Derek.
I've already done it.
Okay.
I already did it.
Okay.
I already did it.
Oh,
He played
last week.
Glenn's
Right?
dad.
Oh,
No, he played Glenn's dad. For no other reason than he could sit down in his chair with a green sweater and be like, "That's why God created fathers, babe."
Good point. Good point.
Lydia.
Well, I feel like the other obvious choice would be the Nancy's dad.
And we'd replace poor John Saxon for the second week in a row.
Yeah. I feel like, yeah, I don't know. I really like, what do you say his name was? John Saxon?
John Saxon, yeah.
I couldn't remember his name for a minute. I feel like he is up there for me with Tom Atkins.
He's great
as an actor.
Yeah, he's great in this.
And this is like the second movie in a row.
Yeah, second movie in a row. And he brings a lot of gravitas, John does, yeah.
Yeah, I think he's like a character. He's super enjoyable. He's an older guy who's a detective type. Mm-hmm. I think he's like, I mean, they could have been interchangeable in these movies, I feel like.
Yeah. So who do you think Tom should play? John Saxon's part?
Yeah.
Poor John Saxon. I would tend to agree with you, Lydia, but I really like John Saxon in this role. I especially like him in Part 3 and in Wes Craven's New Nightmare a lot too. And I just kind of feel bad about replacing John Saxon 2 weeks in a row with Tom. So I'm going to have to go with you, Derek, and have him be Glenn's dad. Just so we could get those scenes. But also, another option, guys, would be he could play the Roger Rabbit part. He could play the Roger Rabbit part, but it wouldn't be as good. I think Glenn's dad, only if he has a Miller in his hand, though.
100%. No other way.
And that is Wes Craven's Nightmare on Elm Street.
Wait. I have one last thought on this, okay?
Yeah.
So I love that Wes directed this one and he directed the new
last one. Yeah.
And it really didn't dawn on me until watching this movie and thinking about the other movie. But like the scene where Freddy comes out of the bed at the end is a direct parallel to the scene where he comes out of the bed in A New Nightmare. And that one, he waits for her to accept the fact that those two, like, that's brilliant. It's so good.
We'll get to Wes Craven's New Nightmare in about 6 more films. So we'll get to it and we'll have a blast. There's a lot to talk about with Wes Craven's New Nightmare. A lot. Another brilliant movie. Any last thoughts on Wes Craven's Nightmare on Elm Street? All right. Well, in that case, be sure to like, share, subscribe.
Wait.
Link. What?
We gotta pick the next movie.
Oh, shit. You're right. Derek, it's your pick.
Is it mine? I thought it was Lydia's.
No, I think it's mine.
Oh, is it yours? I thought it said Derek picked next on the thing.
It did, but I think it's been off
you pick
for a while.
Next. You pick next. Okay. So you pick, Lydia. It's your pick. Okay. What are we doing?
So I'm kind of torn. I've been thinking about it this whole time. I'm like, what am I gonna pick? So I think I'm gonna go with Casey Bascom's 2003 masterpiece, Fear of the Dark.
What?
I feel like we've been on a kick where we've been watching some really good ones, and I feel like we just need to throw, a B movie.
A shit one? What is Fear of the Dark? I've never even heard of this.
I have the perfect one picked out for next week.
Oh God, we're gonna have 2.
We'll get 2 of those.
Perfect.
I picked Wes Craven's masterpiece, and then season 2 kicks off with a bang, and then 2 turds apparently. I've never seen Fear. What's this movie called? Fear of the Dark?
Yes.
Never heard of it. Where's it streaming?
That is a good question. I did not get that far.
Have you heard of this movie, Derek?
Yeah.
Let me
So
look
this
it
is
up.
the one that I was telling you guys about when Derek picked Children of the Night. So if you need any reference, it's better than that movie.
What's it? What year was it?
2003.
Okay, let me see.
Got a cool cover.
Oh my God! I have seen this.
You have?
Jesus! Yes, I have. We rented
We're
this,
gonna
Derek.
watch it.
I think
Yeah,
we
I know.
rented this.
We did.
Oh,
It was a cool
no.
cover.
Yeah, I
We
remember
rented
the
it.
cover.
I rented it too the first time I saw it.
Yeah. Okay. So, I don't look for that one. Did you guys find out where it's streaming?
No, I haven't looked. I
I'm
can't wait
working on
to
it.
tell you mine.
Oh man. Yeah. Streaming. Let's see. It is streaming on Apple TV. That is literally it. You have to rent it for $3.99 on Apple TV.
Huh.
He says, huh. Now
It might be somewhere else.
Now we have to spend $4 on it as well. All right, so next week is Fear of the Dark with the skeleton face man on the cover. Be sure to like, share, subscribe, share with all your friends. Get your merch at Society 9.
Society 6.
Society 6, whatever. What is it? Society 6.
.com/Night Sky Crafts.
Night Sky Crafts. Get all your Scream Bloody movie merch, shirts, cups, other cool shit. Follow me on Twitter at Racket, Racket. Follow Derek on Twitter at DDogLeeMaster. Follow us on social media at Hyla Productions on Facebook, on Instagram, and Scream Bloody Movies, on YouTube, right here where you're watching us. Share it with all your friends. Comment down below. Let's get those numbers up for season 2. Let's start taking over the world with Scream Bloody Movies, guys. Any things to add that I missed?
I think that was it.
That was it. Well, guys, thanks for staying tuned and tuning in with us. And be sure to watch Fear of the fucking Dark or whatever the hell this shit's called. For Derek LeMaster and Lydia Judy, I am Jamie Hiles. Remember, if you're going to scream bloody movies. We've got to figure that out before we had a whole season to figure it out. Scream bloody movies. Goodbye, folks.